This is the Analog Spectrum Halloween Special. We're the full-size Butterfinger in your podcast treat bag, not some shitty apple or a bunch of dumbass candy corns.
All right. We are back. This is Analog Spectrum. This is Tony, and I'm with Doug.
With a special Halloween edition.
The special Halloween.
Can you do it like an evil... I'm going to do it evil.
Oh,
that's lame.
well, yours is way
that
lamer.
Was like a... That was like a...
Let's hear yours.
That was like I can't... Now you're making me laugh, dickhead.
Oh, shit. My dickhead? God. Dude, you're like, do a laugh. Here's a laugh. You're a dickhead. That's sweet.
You just reminded me of Austin Powers when they're all sitting around.
I take that as a compliment.
Okay, anyways. I'm going to throw in an evil laugh somewhere in the middle there when you're not even expecting it. Anyways. All right.
God, that sounded just like the police, which sucks.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, so it is our...
Vaccine.
That's our Halloween episode.
Halloween, that's right.
And
witches and bitches.
We're going to throw out some scary movies. As what we usually do, we picked 5 scary movies, but we probably...
I got a question for you,
Yeah.
though. I'm gonna stop. Hold the presses.
Go.
How did we end up on movies every freaking time now?
I don't know.
We started off with like, oh yeah, man, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, music.
Well, we'll get
like
back
movies
around to the
every single
stuff.
time.
We'll get
It's
back.
Like, all right, we need to get off the movie
when we have had other things. We've done music. We've done
ages ago.
We did our 70s podcast.
Okay.
So,
yeah, we need to find something else.
Well,
listeners, give us topics other than movies.
Sure. I mean,
we can talk about.
Yeah, but movies are we obviously consume a lot of movies. I would have to go back and look to see what our ratio movies versus not movies is. So we did digital versus analog. We've done a lot of movies.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So, but
yes,
that's cool. We're doing Halloween movies, which is cool. I like Halloween movies.
And we even talked about this. It could have been non-Halloween movies. We could have done TV shows. But we are definitely big into media, right? So we picked our top 5 scary movies. Was that it?
Hey, dude, if you threw some echo on that, that'd be a pretty good one.
Maybe if I just actually went someplace and downloaded a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna have echo on it. Come on.
Echo.
Anyways.
Anyway, so how did you pick your list?
I just remembered movies that I liked. I didn't go back and watch all these. There's no way. Yeah, there's no way. As usual with me, anybody who's heard this podcast more than once probably knows, it's got to have an impact with me, man. I'm not a casual viewer. I'm very analytical when I watch, and so yeah, it had to have some kind of an impact. And the ones that I picked definitely all had impact.
Okay, yeah, same. There are some. There could have been some overlap on our 1970s movie list, but I tried to pick originals. Even though you picked Jaws, I didn't put Jaws on here, for example. And the reason why is, we kind of already covered that. But exactly, I picked movies that just kind of scared me as a kid. Movies don't scare me now. Like, I can watch pretty much anything.
So I got a couple on here that scared me as an adult.
Really? Yeah, I think I've got, I say adult, definitely teenager.
I'm talking like 30s.
I have one that was good, because our list is probably going to be different. Yeah. We may have a couple that overlap. That's always fun.
Okay. MASH was first on my list.
Again, back to MASH.
Fucking horror movie.
Oh, whatever.
Okay,
let it go, Doug.
Nope. Oh, look at who's bitching about the police 5 seconds ago.
Oh, whatever.
Hey,
let it go.
You can dish it out. You can take it.
Well, the difference is the police suck.
Yeah. MASH sucks harder.
Oh, whatever. You suck harder.
Sucks out loud. Anyways. Okay, Halloween. Stick to the script. Stick to the script.
I'm not gonna. But I did. But no, these are mostly movies that really terrify. Because movies just don't really. I guess there's jump scares,
Right.
And shit, we forgot to do recommendations on our last podcast. Who cares? Let's definitely do it this time.
We'll
though.
do it. Okay.
Yeah. But with that said, like, there's jump scares, but truly, like, give me the, like, the
heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to use that exact term. But these are movies that, like, really mess with me as a kid, like laying there awake at night.
Okay.
For the most part.
We're going 5 to 1, starting at 5 and going to 1.
Yeah, 5 going backwards, and. I do have like every time we do this, we're like, pick 5 movies. I'm like, that'll be easy. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So when we get to, in between 2 and 1, we'll do our honorable mentions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and start with number 5?
Number 5. Let's see. I didn't actually put mine in a list, but I would say out of my list that I have, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, good one.
That was probably my number 5. And the reason is when I watched that, I was a young person, 20s probably, and just that idea that you could get actually physically hurt inside of a dream. Right. Was kind of cool. I like that, and the character was great. With the old raggedy sweater and the big scissor hand thingies, and it was all cool. I liked it.
Right.
What did you think of that movie?
I loved it. Yeah.
That guy's become like a cult figure, hasn't he?
Yeah. Freddy Krueger did.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
No, I mean like the actor.
Oh, Robert Englund.
Englund. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. My recommendation is starring the woman who played the girl in there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't even know who that is.
I wish I'd have written her name down.
Okay.
But it may be on my notes for recommendation. But yeah, that movie. There were scenes in that movie that, like I said, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, jump scares are kind of fun, just like hills on a roller coaster are kind of fun. But that movie actually had scenes in there. Like I remember when she fell asleep in high school and her friend was in the body bag. You remember, and getting dragged down the hallway. I was like, okay, that's messed up. That's really terrifying.
And then the one with his hand stretched out and scraping the walls. And
yes.
Stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just like imaginative.
The first one really presented him as like a true like horror icon.
Yeah. Yes.
The ones that came after, they got a little cartoony.
Yeah, it did get a little cartoony.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
But and also I remember there was also one scene at the very end where her mother gets dragged through the door window.
Yes.
Oh, that messed with
awesome.
me. That messed with me. Yeah.
Awesome.
So and I was a little bit older, but I do think that was a great flick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quality stuff.
Yeah, that deserves a place on any horror list.
Okay.
And it fits in well with the whole Halloween theme too.
Right.
And like you said, I
just thought of it. Maybe that's what I'll dress up like for Halloween. I have a Halloween costume coming up, or a contest coming up
really?
At work. So maybe I'll do Freddy Krueger because that's easy.
And he's a, like you said, he's a horror icon. Yeah, he's a horror icon that came later.
Let's clarify that horror,
not horror.
You did the one syllable there.
Did I drop a horror icon? Yeah.
Get your oars right, buddy.
But yeah, he's great. So
okay, what about you? Number 5.
Number 5. I kind of even going against what I said initially. This is not one that like terrified me, but I did like it. It is one that I appreciate where it kind of its roots is Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2. Oh, not Evil Dead, but Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2. And we won't get into it too much, but we could for a different podcast, as we always say. 1987, directed by Sam Raimi. Written by him and also Scott Spiegel. And they really were kind of grassroots filmmakers. Mm-hmm. Like the first Evil Dead, if you ever...
I considered that. That's on my recommendation list.
Sure.
The first Evil Dead.
Yeah, the first one is true horror. The second one is kind of a horror comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I like we were talking, and actually I've got a couple more. Actually, probably 3 of mine are kind of could fall under this. Is that there's kind of the Hollywood filmmaking, and then there's kind of that commando grassroots. We're just going to get them. We're going to rent the equipment. We're going to make the movie happen, and all that kind of stuff. And I heard an argument recently, or a discussion recently, how the remakes are a big thing in Hollywood right now, and you just don't get a lot of. You don't get a lot of original productions, but where you do kind of still see, probably more original than not is in horror. Because people, you think of all these movies like
there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons is that a lot of times people, and you can even go back to Night of the Living Dead, like the original George Romero zombie movie. They had the equipment, they needed to make the movie, and they're like, well, what can we make that we know that's going to sell? I
don't think that's the reason. I think it's because it's easy.
Well, that's the point. It's easy and it sells. Mm-hmm. I mean, the truth of the matter is, if they make a drama, using that low budget, they're not going to do. But
it's so. Yeah, and the only reason I'm chiming in on this is because I sat through many years of film school, and I can tell you that this discussion came up over and over again. And if you're going to make your first film, that
Right.
is the easiest thing to make. And the reason is that the acting can be mediocre and it can still be a good, and I don't mean that, bad acting. What I mean is that your first film, you can't afford good actors, right? You can't get Harrison Ford on your first film. So acting can be less than fantastic, for one. And for two, what does that sound?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was clicking my laptop.
Oh, so you okay?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a ghost, the ghost of horror movies. It's like a click,
Why don't you do that shitty laugh again?
Okay. So anyway, my point is like locations, right? You can get a farmer to even give you the location of an old shitty barn somewhere, right? I mean, or pay the guy $50 or something. So it's cheap. And it's relatively easy to make those movies. That's why people like George Romero start there.
I think we're both right. I
agree.
I mean,
but my point is just this: it doesn't mean that they're not good. That's my point.
Sure.
Because those elements that I always bitch about in movies, storytelling, engrossing,
right.
like getting you involved, that's what gets your movie to sell. So as long as you can get those elements right, you don't have to spend $150 million, or what is it now, like $1 billion, to make Maverick or whatever it costs. You know, you don't have to spend that much money to make a good movie. You just really don't.
Right. I mean, I agree that they're cheap and easy, but also I think, you look at like what I was going to talk about was two things. There's a good documentary on Romero making Night of the Living Dead. I cannot remember the name of it. It's probably got Night of the Living Dead in the title, but the other one also is Bruce Campbell for this. His first biography, he talks about. It's called If Chins Could Kill, by the way. I recommend that one. Mm-hmm. But he even talks about, one of the reasons I can't remember his book, but I know in the Romero movie he talks about, they're looking for the widest audience, mm-hmm. and I think I do know with
wide, right?
Yeah, and yes, and I do know
widest audience.
Who's going to go see this, right?
Yeah.
Who sees movies? And I know Romero talks about that with Night of the Living Dead, in that he that they had done other things, and they were kind of like, and by the way, the interviews with him are so funny. He was talking about how they would go and film for like a whole weekend, and they actually had to take the film. And we were really digressing here, but they had to take the film to like actually like the photo mat to have the film done to process. Yeah, and sometimes they would get it back, and like they would they had messed up the processing, and he would say the guy and so they'd done like a whole weekend of filming and it was all ruined, and the guy behind the photo mat would be like at the photo processing, but and he was like in Philadelphia or Boston. It wasn't near there. It was actually near. It was in Pennsylvania, but he would say the guy would be like, "Sorry, we fucked it up." That would be like the only thing the guy would say.
That's all you could say.
And
yeah.
He was like,
what else could you say?
And the guy was like, But yeah, I think again, I think we both have valid points, but
here's I'm going to continue this digression for just a second. If you think about that, the way movies were made previously to the way they're made now, without any exaggeration whatsoever, you and I, I won't say the equipment we have, but with almost with the equipment that we have,
right,
we could make a feature-length film.
Sure.
And we don't have to take our actual celluloid film somewhere to get it processed, because there was a lot of decisions that were made. When you take that to get it processed, it's just like developing regular film, right? How long do you leave it in the solution?
Right.
And they would color grade and stuff like that. So you can do that all now in-house. You can do it on your freaking laptop.
You can do it on your iPhone.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
There's actually, I can't remember who it was, but there was a famous writer-director that recently filmed a whole movie using his iPhone.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up. But yeah, it's crazy.
But anyway, so it's come a long way.
Yeah, so Evil Dead. But
Evil Dead 2. Evil
Dead 2. Yeah, it wasn't particularly scary to me, but it had its moments,
right.
And and I like the fact that it just took things in a direction. It wasn't really a sequel. It wasn't really a remake. It kind of did both those things.
Right.
And, of course, Bruce Campbell's one of my favorites. Ted Raimi, Sam's brother, he played like the possessed Henrietta. Yeah, it was all good. So,
I don't remember that movie very much. I remember the first one.
Right.
I watched that. Yeah, and it's one of my favorites. In fact, I showed it to my wife.
Yeah, what you think?
It's like, well, it's not a chick movie. It's mostly like idiots like you and I watch it. So
it's great.
Whatever.
I thought that, and that is one remake because they did remake it, and it's pretty creepy. The remake's actually, is not bad. Okay. So yeah,
fair enough.
All right, next one.
I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this one. It's called The Grudge.
Yes, of course I've heard The Grudge. Yes.
Whatever that creepy sound that kid made under the bed is like, oh my God, that freaked me out. So I got to tell you,
but let me ask first: Are your sound effects lousy?
My sound effects? They're terrible. Yeah, of course they are. As evident in my evil laugh. At least I don't sound like Dr. Evil. Wow. But Jesus, don't do that again. Okay, The Grudge. Yeah. So this one, I mean, the movie itself was scary enough, right?
Right.
Like just in that creepy, kind of freaky Japanese, whatever you call that. That's not stop motion, but drop frame video. I don't know what they call it, but where the chicks move like spiders.
That jerky
stuff.
walking.
Yeah, that weird thing.
I hate that. I hate it in a good way.
Yeah. But it's also as a personal reason for me because this is one of the first movies that when my wife and I believe we were still dating, we went to see this in the movie theater, and it got both of us. Like it got it like legit. Like I suspension of disbelief all the way, and I got into it, and we talked about this forever.
Was it the Japanese horror one, or was it the American remake?
No, the Japanese one. Yeah.
Yes, that was so. I mean, okay. Honestly, I was about to say it was so good. I can't say that because I don't even know if I've watched it all the way through.
Okay.
But there was that period where there was like
there was a lot of these.
There was a lot of these, and they were good.
Yeah,
a lot of them were really good, like The Ring, for example.
Yeah. So, all right, that's my number 4.
Oh, okay. So my number 4 is Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
1978.
Okay.
Getting back on what I said, these are, and of course George Romero, who I idolize as a director. I remember when this came out, 1978. My brother went to go see it. I think he actually just kind of, and there's a couple. The next one of mine is like this too. He actually just kind of told me about it, but the thought of like, and I didn't know about Night of the Living Dead when this one came out in 1978. I was 11, and the idea of like the dead walking, like the world being an apocalypse that involved like true like flesh eating zombies. I just remember like going to bed thinking, man, what if like, and this sounds terrible,
that really happened.
Yeah. What if my mom came in and she was a zombie, and it bothered me to no end. And then when I went to go see it, it doesn't age well. It's not the movie didn't age well, but I remember seeing it in that opening scene where, they're in that, tenement building, the low income building, and those people were not destroying the zombies; they were just dumping them into the garbage chute, and there was the whole basement was filled with zombies, and that SWAT team went in there and they were just like blasting the crap out of everybody, living or dead, and that one guy like killed himself because he didn't want to be on a world where that was like this, and it just felt very. Like,
cut you deep.
Oh God, it did, and the mall, and now I look back on it, and I can kind of analyze it a little bit more. Of course, the whole.
Well, that movie set the trend for zombie movies, especially with the mall. Right, yes. The mall. You had to if you can make a zombie movie, you have to have a mall. It's and only and it makes perfect sense in our modern world because that's a congregation spot that we all know where there's lots of people. Hence, there's going to be lots of zombies. So,
yes. And that there was still something wired in their heads where people went to where there was, and people go look at it now and they say, well, every time Romero does a zombie movie, it has some political statement, which that one did about capitalism and commerce and commercialism and all that kind of stuff. And sure, take that for what it is. It's there. You can't get around it. Yeah. But there's no. I know, like when I was a teenager and that movie came up, you're like, hell yeah, I'd go to a mall. Hell yeah, I'd do that.
It's interesting because obviously that movie sort of set the standard for all that, but the discussion then becomes like, oh yeah, hell yeah, I'd go to a mall. But I mean, a mall can be a fortress, but a mall can also be a grave, right? Because all the glass.
Yes, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and they were actually planning on bailing anywhere. They're bailing anyway. The folks that were in there, the Francine and Peter, Roger, all those folks. They were, well, Roger died, but they were, and
he deserved it.
What, the guy that was that was there when they were blocking?
Yeah.
That was again very heavy-handed stuff. I mean, you're kind of like, clearly some bad stuff was going to happen because he was acting like an idiot, right? And nobody liked Steven. They put him over. They were making him out to be kind of a jerk. So there was that was just that. Like we're just saying with Evil Dead, and why do you make these movies? Because you don't need good acting. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can be kind of heavy-handed with stuff, and people still like it.
Think maybe you and I should make a zombie movie.
Maybe. Well, everybody's making them now.
Whatever. Who cares what anybody else does? I think we might make a zombie movie.
I wouldn't mind making a movie.
Because I think we could throw some stuff in there. Like, for example, never mind. I'm not going to give it away.
All right, fine.
Somebody's going to steal my idea. Just like The Hateful Eight got released online. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to be listening to this and steal my idea.
We'll talk.
I
think we have a YouTube channel now. We can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I didn't even know we had a YouTube channel. Okay.
What's that?
I didn't even know we had one.
Yeah, and so we do. And then Tom Savini did the makeup, which was pretty cool, I guess, for the time. There was some good gore in that. And there was that 2004 remake, which at the time I liked, but I don't now.
Okay.
And I honestly, the sequel to this one, Day of the Dead, was another one that kind of goofed me up. Actually kind of bothered me.
Okay.
Yeah, and that one.
I don't think I saw that.
Oh, it was they took there was a scene in there where at the end where some people were getting eaten, and it had probably at the time, because I think don't know when that came out, early 80s, and when the zombies were eating these guys, like, it was just.
This is visceral.
Oh my God! There was one where a guy's got his head got removed and he was screaming. I was just like, "Oh my word! How did they do
awesome.
that?" Of course, as his vocal cords are getting stretched, his scream gets higher and higher. I was just like, "Oh!"
Okay.
I think it even holds up. It was very nihilistic, and that's going to come up again, by the way, nihilism. But it was very like, who even cares? The world is over.
Right.
So dark. And all right,
that's the kind of stuff I like, anyways.
Yeah.
Number three.
Yep.
What, number three?
Yep.
All right. Gosh, I'm doing this like it's actually important. It's like, I don't know. Is it this one or is it this one? Is it this? I don't know. But this one had a. But how about that? Yeah.
Screw listeners.
No. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Doug, do me a favor and act like you give a shit.
So I'll tell you. All right. Number three, I'm gonna say is Blair Witch.
Oh, okay. You put Blair Witch on there. Nice.
Yes. And only because I knew. Now, this I will harken back to a previous conversation that we had about me being anti-popularity.
Okay.
I knew there was a bunch of hype around this movie, but I literally had no idea what that was. Now, again, for some context, folks, Tony and I were in the Coast Guard, and when you go out to sea, when you went out to sea, there was no television, there was no internet, there was none of that stuff.
No satellite.
So, no satellite, nothing. So you missed stuff. You just missed it. So right. I think I was actually on one of the ships I was on, and I knew coming back, there was all these people were talking about Blair Witch. Anyway, so I went to see it, and I had no idea kind of what it was. And so I would say the first 2/3 of the movie, I wouldn't say I thought it was real, but it was presented in such a way where it was freaking believable as hell.
Right.
And it had me going all the way up to the point where they had those creepy things tied up in the trees and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then I started going like, I don't know. And then they kind of lost me a little bit there. And then I started to sink in. But the whole first 2/3 of the movie where it was the lost hiker and she was looking for him and all that stuff, and that had me, man. I roped in all the way.
Yeah,
and that, not that this is why I chose it, but that really did set the standard, like you were talking about in the zombie movies. That set the standard for the found footage genre. I mean, there was nothing even came close.
I don't know if there was a found footage thing before this.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it did. Definitely 100% set the found footage thing, and which I saw Blair Witch. I was on the Blair Witch wagon when Blair Witch wagon. Okay, so we'll go with that. That's the thing. art is now. I definitely enjoyed it when it first came out.
Right.
I like we're talking about the whole grassroots filmmaking thing. Fits right into that. Those guys was in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, geez, I don't think that movie could have cost him $10,000.
I am sure that movie. When you talk about spending for a movie to gross the disparity between those, I'm sure that set a record that'll never be beat.
Yeah, probably.
They probably spent like $5,000 to make that movie. I don't even know. It was low, I'm sure.
Yeah,
and it made millions.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, if you probably adjusted for inflation, it would be off the rails.
Yep. So.
But
anyway,
with that said, it could have potentially been on this list. I don't think that movie really ever scared me that much.
Yeah.
But
did you ever see Cloverfield?
Yeah,
because that was that one had intrigued the crap out of me, but only for like the first 10 minutes.
Right.
And when I think there was a scene in there where you saw like a leg or something walk by of the big monster or whatever it was, and I'm like, oh shit, that was cool. But then it got like the shaky cam stuff was too much, man. Right. It was just, oh my god.
Well,
it was too much.
Well, just like zombie movies or movies that look like Star Wars or whatever, there's always the first one that does it a certain way that obviously sets everything on fire, and then there's so much that come after. Yeah, I was over found footage way before people stopped doing it, Yeah. And I mean, what was the one Paranormal Activity? I saw the first one. That was okay. I mean, it was scary, but just like with Blair Witch, you watch a lot of shaky cam before you finally get the payoff, right?
Right.
And so the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore with that stuff.
Right.
Occasionally, somebody might do something kind of interesting.
Well, I was going to tell you that I did have Paranormal on my list.
Did you?
Yep, it's on my list, but it's on like, also ran kind of. Yeah. I would put it right there with Blair Witch, only because that to me had a cool combination because the technology had moved on several years, and it had a cool combination. It was all found footage, but it was like, what do you call it? Like house cameras and stuff like that.
Right.
So it wasn't shaky cam, but it was still found footage. And then it had this cool mixture of jump scares in there, which I thought was awesome. And then the paranormal stuff, you know what I mean? Like all the kitchen cabinets fling open. It scared the living shit out of me, man. My wife and I watched that together again, and it was one of those like, oh my God.
Well,
I was like one of those black ladies in the movie theater. You're like, don't go in there. Don't go in there. I swear to God. But again, so here it is. This is where I always come back to. Like I was invested in that movie because it roped me in.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, and Blair Witch as well. Both of them.
And both of these also. Another thing that both of them do is there is a lot of show don't tell, and it leaves open like what's going on to debate.
Yes,
like you never get. They don't tell you.
They don't explain.
They don't explain anything. And you.
Dude, how about Paranormal Activity when that pool cleaner thing was moving around?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was out of the pool. You're like, what the?
All kinds of, and it could have stopped there. And then I think now it's just.
Yeah, I don't even know what they're doing now.
I don't know, but.
But anyway, so
yeah. So all right,
2 for 1 there on my number 3.
Good stuff. Yeah, I like both those. My number 3 is Phantasm.
Okay.
1979. Very similar in that. I actually. Still like I can still watch this movie.
The one with David Bowie with the little.
No. This is Phantasm was about those two brothers. There's a mortuary, and there's a tall man, and let me see. I'll read the description real quick. Mike, a young teenager who has just lost his parents. This is from IMDb. Afraid to lose. His brother follows him to a funeral where Mike witnesses the tall man lifting a coffin on his own. Mike decides to investigate and discovers the tall man, protected by his flying spheres, is shrinking dead bodies down to half their normal size and reanimating them to become slaves.
Oh, and Jesus.
so they go
dwarves.
Yeah, and he sends them back to a planet where they work. So it's kind of multidimensional.
Okay, I did not see that.
Oh yeah. So
I'm going to ask. This is a serious question. It's going to sound weird, but is this the same story that the 2 girls ended up? This like young girls, 12 or something, and in real life they killed their friend or something. Was the tall man? They
different guy.
Okay,
yeah. So
I was just curious.
no, this is a little background on this. This was written and directed by a guy by the name of Don Coscarelli, and same thing. Low budget.
Tony always does this research and tells you who these people are.
I
like The Ring.
I
That's a good movie. I don't do any of that research.
I could have actually done this one just on memory. When we were kids, we got HBO, and HBO.
Dude, you were rich. If you had HBO in my neighborhood, you were rich.
Well, how much you pay? $5.99 a month. What's going on?
Yeah.
So we'd rather eat.
Yes.
So
poking beans.
But we were not rich. But you know. But with that said, there was a movie that was on there, and this is a deep cut, and this movie was called Kenny and Company, right? That was also done by Dan Coscarelli, right?
Okay.
And this is also kind of back on why do a horror movie versus anything else. And he's got camera equipment. He would even like rent it on Friday so he could get it for the full weekend and only have to pay one day when he rented camera equipment. And Kenny and Company was kind of a kids movie, like almost like this low budget Bad News Bears day in the life of this kid named Kenny. And I remember just thinking it was just the funniest damn movie about kids, you know. And if I can ever get a copy of it, I don't think we'll ever do anything with it, but I know for a fact it's not going to age well because you know I watched it as a
HR 11, and stuff.
Yeah, I watched it like as a 12-year-old, and I was like, that's awesome. There's but there's some stuff in there that like for example, him and his buddy Doug is his buddy who actually stars in this one.
Okay.
They decide to build this like soapbox derby car, and so they build this thing, and it's just a rickety hunk of shit, right? And they end up going down this hill, and it is like a suicide thing where both of them almost like die. It's terrifying.
Calvin and Hobbes,
yeah, like they almost it wasn't fun or anything like that. And so they both, like, you know, it's just not what they thought it was. And then like later, like after that happens, there's a scene of them just like chucking over a fence because they're just it's kind of like failed, you know. And so I thought that was funny.
I have experiences like that in real life.
Yes, and so he ends up making this movie, and this movie again, 1979. It's just about this kid and his brother, and the parents are dead. The brother's a little bit older. He's taking care of him, and there's a mortuary near their house, and horror stuff happens. Right, I remember it scaring me as a kid, and but a couple things that I think you will really appreciate. One, Jody, which is the older brother, drives a triple black 1971 Plymouth Cuda.
Oh, nice!
Which is insane.
Cuda,
yeah, very sweet car. And another thing I liked is it's typical in like a horror movie for you know, oh my gosh, let's hide under the bed. Let's make bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
These guys do not make bad decisions. Okay. You know, like there is a scene there's a scene I love in there where well, for one, the tall man tries to catch Mike, and Mike, he goes in this room, shuts the door. The tall man grabs the door frame. His fingers get stuck in the door. Mike takes like a hunting knife and cuts one of his fingers off, right? He takes the finger and puts it like in a box, right? And just the finger. And later on he's telling Jody the story. So like, this is what happened. I saw him pick up a coffin. This guy's doing something. It's messed up. And Jody's like, dude, Michael, I just think you're imagining stuff. And so he goes, well, look at this. And he opens the box up, and the finger's in there. And of course the finger is like moving,
wiggling around.
Yeah. And he goes, all right, I believe you. like immediately. And then there's a scene later where Jody goes back by himself, and one of the shrunken dwarfs jumps on his back.
Jesus Christ.
And he's like, oh my God. And he pulls out like a 45 and he fires it over his head, like he holds it behind him and shoots the dwarf off his back. And I was like, that's pretty awesome for 1979.
Like
so
that's the kind of movie we need to make.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's had multiple sequels. They're not great, but this one was really good. But if you haven't seen it, I'd like you to watch it.
Yeah. I'm questioning your judgment, but okay.
Sure.
All right, so that was your number 3.
Yes, number 2?
My number 2 is The Ring.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I'll tell you the story around the ring. The reason, and I don't think it's the movie. I think it just happens to be my personal experience with the ring. Again, I was underway, had no clue, never even heard of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think I was, anyway, I was in logistics.
Question: Is this the American remake, or is this the Japanese one?
I'm not sure. What was the popular one?
The American one.
Okay, that's probably the one it was.
I imagine. I mean, yes, popular could be either, but
Well, okay, so I'll tell you the story, and you tell me. I didn't do any research, as you can tell. I would guess it's the American one,
Probably.
but I was traveling, and I want to say I was in Italy or Germany. I was in logistics, and a lot of times I had to leave the ship and go organize things and whatever. So I was in Italy or Germany, and I was staying at Navy Lodge or something like that. I was by myself, foreign country and all that. So I walked down to the Navy Exchange, and I just so happened the room I was in had a VCR player. This is before DVDs. And so I rented this up. I was like, shit, whatever. It didn't say anything on it. It just showed a ring. I didn't no clue what this thing was. And so I'm eating cold pizza in this dark hotel room in a foreign country, and this movie comes on, and it just like it was all the elements were like in the right alignment.
yes,
For me to like fall into this movie, like
Right.
I was in, and I was like, holy crap! This, and again we had that creepy
that
Japanese
jittery
girl
walk.
movement thing,
Yeah.
And, and I thought the story was actually pretty good. I mean, it's redone a zillion times, right?
Now,
Batman falls down a well, and whatever, all that stuff.
right.
But
Batman falls down a well.
yeah, that's where was it Batman Not Returns? Anyway, yeah, he's in the well. He falls down the well, remember? And the
Yes.
bats are after him, and that's why he's got his fear of bats. Anyways, yeah. So similar kind of stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I just was very, very entertained and engrossed in that film in a creepy, cool kind of a way. In the way you like to be scared by scary movies.
Sure. Yeah. That's another one of those.
And I was an
movies-
adult. I was definitely in my late 20s probably.
Right. That was your number 2, wasn't it?
That was number 2.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the that movie again is one of those movies that is just. There's no escape. There's no getting around it. You're screwed.
Yeah.
If you watch the video, you're screwed.
Yeah.
The same thing. That movie, there was a few jump scares, but like when that girl came out of the TV set, I was like, there's no getting around that. You're hosed.
Yeah. Well, because what happens to me, anyways, is just like you're following along with the story and whatever, and then something like that happens. The chick crawls out of the TV and like, oh shit. Okay, so we just broke this dimension.
Yeah.
And of course you don't literally think this. We're thinking, wait a second, she crawled through a TV and I got a TV and it's a videotape and I'm watching a videotape.
Right. and I'm actually watching the video that actually jacks
that
people
tells
up.
You, yeah.
Yeah, it actually jacks people up. It's on this video. Yes. Yeah. It's like, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want to have to
And
deal
it's
with
that
this.
morbid curiosity you can't stop watching. It's all
Yes.
that shit. Yeah. So you mix all that together and it was cool, man. That movie got me.
Yes,
I liked it a lot.
It was another one that was kind of the first
Yeah,
thing.
it was kind of the first of its genre.
Yeah, and definitely terrifying. Yeah.
Yep.
So, any honorable mentions?
Well, paranormal. And I would say other honorable mentions. I would say, what the hell is it? Okay, first of all, I never liked the movie Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis. I never liked that movie. I don't know why.
Right.
But the other one with Jason, the
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I had wanted to date this chick for the longest time.
Who?
I don't even. I remember her name, but I'm not going to say her name. This was when it first came out.
Is this a real
We're
person?
still in high school. Yeah.
Oh, actually in high school. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I thought you meant like an actress.
No,
Okay.
no. This girl in high school I wanted to date for the longest time. I finally got a date with her, which is we need to do a podcast on this.
Oh, no.
No. A podcast on the difference in dating nowadays. Swipe left, swipe right versus what we had to go through.
You know,
it was a whole different thing.
also,
right? Don't go off on a tangent. Here he goes.
No, let me do this.
Straight, I threw the breadcrumbs out, and there he goes.
I just remember like when Doug and I were single around the same time. We joked around about
Jesus,
this.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Boop up and we have interference. We're having some technical
I'm not going
difficulties.
anywhere. I'm about to though, but go ahead.
Anyway, okay, so yeah, we'll save that for the podcast because I believe there's some very good entertaining stuff.
Yeah, that's not a movie.
Anyway, so Friday the 13th, I finally got a date with this girl. And we went to go see Friday the 13th. It was all the rage. I was probably a junior or senior in high school, something like that.
Right.
And we're standing there. And you just queue up for the movie. We're standing like number 4, number 5 in line or whatever.
Right.
Got our tickets waiting to go in.
Yeah.
And some kid comes running out of the theater. Oh, my God. He chopped her head off. And I'm like, what the shit, man? I'm like, what? And then, so, of course, we go in and watch the movie, and it's creepy as shit, and whatever. And then at the end, they chop Jason's head off. And anyway, so, of course, I did the classic thing on the way home, and I drove a 75, I think, Volkswagen Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
Or whatever. And then, so it was a stick shift, so I was playing with the clutch and turned the lights off. And I did all that stuff. So, of course, it didn't go over very well. That was a dude joke, but
yeah.
Anyway, so that's my honorable mention.
Yeah. So two things before I do my number 2, because I have a quick funny story.
Number 2 on there.
I had a quick funny story for you. First, you talk about spoilers. I remember just nothing to do with anything, but I remember when. Which one was it? One of the Star Wars recent Star Wars movies came out, and everybody freaks out about spoilers. I was on YouTube and I was looking at like a spoiler-free review of, I think it was The Last Jedi. I think it was The Last Jedi. Yes, and it was supposed to be spoiler-free, and I was like scrolling through the comments, and just somebody wrote Snopes dies, like the. I was just like, well, that's classic trolling. I thought that was great. Yeah. And you made a comment that I just wanted to follow up on, that, when we were underway, I don't know how it works now, but how now, especially, you can get first run movies immediately. Yeah. Ships nowadays, I know they have satellite, and I know they have internet. So they're probably pumping brand new stuff.
You can watch Netflix probably. Yeah.
Or even, like, if like a new movie comes out, they may even have almost instant access to it.
Right.
And but we never did, No. And I was underway when the first Lord of the Rings came out, and I actually went to go see it in Valparaiso, Chile,
Okay.
And it was funny. I'll try to keep it short, but one of my friends on the boat, a female officer, I was like, hey, I just wanted somebody to go with me to watch this movie, which I love. The first Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Fellowship of the Rings is an amazing movie to me. And she's like, I don't like fantasy. She's like, I don't want to go, And I was like, come on, just please, you'll love it. I'll buy your ticket. But I was even like, there's fantasy, but this is it. This is where it all comes from, right? Yes. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And so anyway, I go see her. I'm watching it. I am just kind of, and it was subtitled in Spanish, but it was English.
The original.
It was English, and also I didn't have to deal with that. Only when they talked Elven, I didn't know what the hell they were saying. But so I'm watching the whole thing. I am just on board. I am just like, this is the greatest movie ever, right? Mm-hmm. And the scene where. So I'm just like, the finally scene, they're trying to get out of the mines of Moria. They're going down the stairs. Legolas is whipping those arrows and taking people out way in the distance, And I'm even thinking to myself, she's got to be on board with this, right? Mm-hmm. And but there's that scene where you have the gigantic staircase and it falls, and it falls perfectly so where the hobbits can get off, And when that happens, I hear her go, Jesus fucking Christ. She goes, give me a break.
Okay, not on board.
That's the
board. Signal. It's probably what I sounded like during MASH.
Well, clearly Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings is way better than that. Yes, but no argument there. Okay, so my number 2. My number 2, and I'll give you my honorables here in a second. The Exorcist is 1973. William Friedkin, based on the book by William Peter Blatty, Linda Blair, Ellen Burstyn, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Not much to say about this. One note, though, is I did not see this movie until I was probably a teenager, maybe in the 80s. But it came out in the 70s, and it still scared the shit out of me. The idea of it terrified me. That I lost a lot of sleep over this movie. Well, I was raised Catholic, demonic possession was a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just sure.
That's why my wife says, she's like, well, she won't even watch it.
Yeah, I can't. Anything that deals with the demonic possession. I mean, because I always just felt like I am a target for whatever reason. Yeah, it's going to fucking happen, right?
Because you're human and you're weak.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all of us.
I'm a kid. She's a kid.
Yeah.
And so I ended up watching it. And finally, I was like, I'm gonna tear that Band-Aid off. I'm gonna watch it. It was as bad as I thought. I mean, it terrified me. Yeah. I'm sure that movie still holds up.
Yeah.
So.
But again, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but if you go back to it, it's the movie making that makes it stand up. The story is strong. Right. But then it's the telling of the story. Oh. It is just good, man.
It's insane.
That's a great film.
It's so dark, and like
so
I said,
I thought the the interactions between the priest and the devil were actually really good.
Right.
But more interesting to me was the what's the word I'm looking for? The limitations of the priest. Like he couldn't. You know what I mean? It wasn't clear cut, good guy, bad guy.
Right.
It wasn't like the priest just comes along and goes, hey, knock that off because I got God behind me and I said so. That didn't happen.
Or they
he fought his ass off and he was
right. And they didn't make him like an uber weak character.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Nuanced. Yeah.
He was nuanced, and that's a good word for it because that's what I was trying to say is that he's flawed. You know what I mean? He's trying. He's trying
strong.
Strong. Yep, absolutely.
Right.
But he's not perfect. And that's the problem with so many films is they try to draw the black and white and the clear cut distinction and all that stuff. But
and maybe in today's because religion is a target nowadays, and I'm sure they would have made him. They would have brought that into it. Yeah,
he would have been fallible big time.
Yeah, and brought no redeeming qualities. And of course this character was Father Damien was amazing. Also.
And the conversations that he would have with the mother downstairs out of earshot, I think that was like super powerful because as a kid, I remember overhearing adult conversations, like not what they were talking about or anything, but just hearing adults talking in another room in a different way than they would talk to you as a kid, right? When they talk to you as a kid, they kind of talk, hey, little kid, whatever. Right. But then when they were in an adult conversation, they were talking in a different way. And to me, that struck me as, I don't know, it's just another element of reality, like, sucking you in because it's believable.
Yes. Yeah. It was, like I said, it's definitely a movie that stands up. It was really excellent filmmaking. It was scary the way it should be scary. It's just, like I said, it was just very hard for me to watch because, I just like everything else we talked about, there's no escaping it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Honorable mentions real quick.
Honorable mentions, yeah.
Okay. Ernest Scared Stupid was a great flick. So, Aliens, Poltergeist, Hellraiser, Nightmare on Elm Street, which I already mentioned. Friday the 13th, which you already mentioned. Halloween, only because of what Halloween was. American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
The Shining.
I don't think it's a horror. I don't know. I guess it's a horror movie, but to me it was a psychological thriller kind of a deal. But
I already mentioned the Mega Man would be on my list, but it's already mentioned in the 70s and The Omen. The Omen, and any one of those could probably be on this list. Definitely 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Well, what's your number one?
Poltergeist, I thought was interesting too because that one did kind of suck me in a little bit, but I don't think that one stands up real well.
Oh, I was also the one thing about Poltergeist that totally jacked me up was when the guy tore his face off.
Yeah.
That was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
That was a movie that was kind of almost like this is almost like a kid's horror movie.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what just happened? That was like not okay. Also, I forget to mention on The Exorcist, Tubular Bells, amazing.
Okay, yeah,
the soundtrack to that. But so all these like the Friday the 13th was almost on my list because it did bother me a lot.
Yeah.
And like I said, The Omen also did. Well, that was a movie that scared.
I don't know who came up with that. That's cool as
brilliant.
Hell. Yeah, it's
brilliant.
Cool as hell.
Yeah. So, all right, what's your number one?
Number one. I don't know. I'm afraid that you're probably going to have this. Anyway, Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, I already talked about Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah,
I talked about
Dawn
that. Yeah. So
I thought that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Only because I liked the There's a lot of elements. Well, first of all, gosh, there's so many individual scenes in that movie that are great. But
that was my number 4.
I'm talking about the 2004 version.
Oh, are you really?
Yes.
Okay.
Starting off with the credits. I thought the credits in that movie were amazing.
The Johnny Cash song? No, the Johnny Cash song.
The Johnny Cash song, yep. That was it. But then also they had the credits were in blood, then they kind of go like... And I figured out they just did that with an airbrush, with an air hose, and that's freaking brilliant.
Right.
I took a whole class on credits in film school, and you would be amazed at how much effort goes into credits. It's crazy. I pay attention to them now. Usually be like, okay, movie's over, we're done. But anyway. But the pacing is probably the right word, but the way the movie draws you in, to me, was freaking masterful, because it evolves to the point where it starts to really, you realize like, okay, shit's not well, but then it goes downhill so fast from there.
Right.
Like it's just like a boom when that little kid comes in and she bites dad.
Right.
It starts going downhill super quick, and then when the chick, this is one of the scenes that I remember in filmmaking. They always talk about the psycho shower scene and all that stuff. This is the scene for me, is when the girl backs into the bathroom and locks the door, and she falls into the tub.
Yeah, that's a great...
How in the hell did they film that? It must have been like a sponge tub or something.
Right.
Because she would have seriously knocked herself out when she fell into... I don't know how they did that. That was awesome.
I think the opening was the whole...
It was freaking
amazing.
Great.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
And then she climbs out the window, and then that's the first time you get to see that these are not your average zombies.
Wow.
That's the Chihuahua.
that
was not a fart. That was a Chihuahua.
Yeah, so...
But yeah,
that was a Chihuahua farting.
Yes. But that was the first time you get to see that these are not your average, like, bumbling zombies. These zombies are run.
Yeah, the fast zombies were crazy.
Yeah, and that was super cool. And then from that point, when she takes off in the car, that whole sequence of her driving through the neighborhood and seeing all the crazy shit that's going on, the neighbor with a shotgun getting attacked and all of that stuff, that was like, holy crap, it was like a wild ride.
Yeah.
And then she's driving down the freeway, and that helicopter shot starts rising and rising and rising, and it gives you kind of a scope of the, you start to see like this is happening all over. And then I know this was CG because I can see it now, but when I first saw it, I couldn't see it. And there's a car in front of her, and just gets T-boned at this intersection and plows off into the gas station and blows up. And like, that was a freaking brilliant way to show the chaos.
Right. That it was the apocalypse.
Is upon us. Yeah.
Interesting thing about that shot, as the helicopter pulls back, or the scene pulls back, another helicopter flies in scene.
Yes.
That's actually the helicopter from the original movie.
From the original?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
a little homage.
Yeah, the fast zombies were like I think, well, I mentioned towards the end when I mentioned mine being the 1978. I loved it when it first came out. I don't know how I feel about it now.
What, the remake?
Yeah, the remake. I think it was. I really liked it when it first came out because I think I was kind of craving zombies. The fast zombies just like took it to a whole nother level. There is no surviving that.
I had to buy it. I bought it. I own it on DVD.
Do you really? Yeah.
I had to buy it.
Yeah, there is no surviving that. You know what I mean? Like.
Then she gets stuck in traffic, and she's behind that bus, and those people are getting eaten alive inside the bus.
In the bus, yeah. Like slow shambling zombies are kind of like, okay, well, I can
deal with that.
I can jump on a bicycle and get away from these guys, right? But there is no getting away from the fast zombies. Yeah. That movie, even like you were saying, like once they got to the mall, it just never. I do like that it is kind of a reimagine. It's not a reboot; it's a reimagining because you don't have the same characters.
Right.
It doesn't happen the same way. Yeah.
Right. And I liked Ving Rhames in that. I thought he was really good in there. Yeah. The rest of them, I don't know. I mean, I thought that character that was on the rooftop across the way shooting people, that was kind of fun. Was it Burt Reynolds and Rosie O'Donnell and whatever? They're shooting stars and stuff.
Amazing. Yeah.
That was pretty good. But I mean, at the end, I thought it was a kind of a cool ending.
Yeah.
Where they got on the boat.
Right.
I thought that was kind of cool, but
it wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect. Yeah.
So.
But at the end of the day, I think that's, like I said, I had to buy it, and I own it, and I've watched that, I don't know, a dozen times or something. That's kind of my go-to if I just like, I just want to watch something cool and like.
Interesting pick for number one.
Yeah, and it's totally, it's almost like a bubblegum thing. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just really a non-consequential, but just a fun roller coaster ride movie for me.
Yeah. My number one, John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982.
Yeah, I know you're a fan of that. I know you're a fan of
Love that movie, man.
Yeah.
I mean, for one, based on a short story by who the hell did that short story? It wasn't Bill Lancaster. Interesting. The actual story was written by John W. Campbell, but there's another two writers. The other one, Bill Lancaster. He actually wrote this, or I think he just kind of built on that story from John W. Campbell, 1938. Short story, but I think Bill Lancaster just fleshed out the characters. That Bill Lancaster also wrote the Bad News Bears and all the Bad News Bears movies, and that's it. Bad News Bears, The Thing.
Well,
otherwise nothing on the Internet Movie Database.
Well, he's got a good contribution.
I love Bad News Bears.
Yeah,
that's so, and also the music done by John Carpenter, and again Ennio Morricone, the guy who did. So he also did the soundtrack, which was kind of interesting. They did a soft reboot sequel in 2011 that stunk. And this was actually a reboot from another movie from 1951. But the reason I like this movie so much is kind of like what I talked about with Phantasm is, you have this group of individuals, and just a very, there's no getting out. This is bad. This is super, super bad, right? And, once they kind of realized what's going on, nobody questioned it, They knew that they were in a bad situation. And even though the decisions they made didn't get them out of the situation they made, especially, and also it's got Kurt Russell. By the way.
Russell, yeah.
He's a man. Yeah. He's the dude. And also had Wilford Brimley.
Yeah, exactly.
But
wasn't he also in the Bad News Bears?
I think he was. No, and so was Kurt Russell. Not really, but they made great decisions, and also the special.
He did the Grape Nuts commercials, didn't he?
He did. Also talked about having diabetes.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
No, but
it's funny that this came up.
I was going to make jokes about the Grape Nuts, man.
I was thinking just the other day. I haven't had cereal in I don't know how long, and just my wife's away, and I'm like, I'm gonna do some cereal. It's easy, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking just the other day to talk to you about Grape Nuts. Like, you remember Grape Nuts? Like,
yes.
Jesus.
Dude, they're horrible though. They're not. They don't taste. They sound delicious. But they're not. They're not. Who eats
and it takes
those?
you 20 minutes to eat a spoonful because they're so crunchy. Yeah.
It's like eating a bowl of gravel.
Yeah.
It's the flavor is the same too.
Yeah.
So I don't. I remember as a kid, I was like, "Mom, grape nuts sounds delicious. Give me some." She's like, "All right." And so she bought me things. I think I had half a bowl, and those things sat there until they decayed.
You got to dump a bunch of sugar and fruit into it to make them good.
There's no grapes to them. They don't taste like any kind of peanut I've ever had.
Anyway.
Yeah, so and the people that aren't familiar with this story, pretty much what it comes down to is there's a station in Antarctica. There's a crashed alien ship. Somehow, these individuals get a hold of one of the aliens in the ship. The aliens are shape changers, and they end up inside this thing, and the alien is slowly taking over. Each individual can mimic those individual perfectly, and but during that shape changing period, it's just, to me, this was a very graphic horror film that had just great practical special effects. Some of the best practical special effects I think probably ever. I mean, there's that scene where the doctor, Dr. Copper is you
say that with confidence.
Yeah, and I've seen it a lot. And where he's one of the other characters seems to have a heart attack, and they're trying to bring him back, and they pull out the defibrillator, and as they shock him, the aliens, because it looks like the individual, right? But it's not. It's one of the shape changers, and his chest splits open. The defibrillator paddles go through the chest along with the doctor's hands, and the chest closes and bites his arms off, right? And it looks amazing. It looks amazing. And then immediately, because once again these are men knowing what men need to do, Kurt Russell whips out a flamethrower and lights both the doctor and the alien on fire, right? Yeah. And my favorite line in the whole movie is this alien on the table is on fire now, but the head falls off, right? The head of the alien falls off and hits the ground upside down. Like, in other words, the scalp is sitting on the ground, and it sprouts 8 legs like a spider, and starts to walk away, right? It sprouts 2 antennae.
Right, little antennae, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the characters looks around and sees that thing walking away, and he just goes,
"You gotta be fucking kidding."
And I think that's the greatest line in the movie, you know. Yeah. And so the movie itself is super dark. I said I was going to use the term again. Super nihilistic. Doesn't end on a happy note. Leaves you guessing. Because another great actor in this is Keith David, who plays Childs, the one. Well, he's the other survivor, but you don't know. You don't know if he's don't
know if he's an alien or not. Yeah.
So I love it. It is. If that was always going to be my number one. All the other ones probably can move around a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's. I remember watching it at a friend's house. And just thinking, as a teenager, thinking, "Oh my God, what did I just watch?" And any time a movie does that to me, because most movies I watch, I'm just kind of like,
whatever. Yeah.
But number one,
cool. That's a good one. I remember watching it, but I don't have the same fondness for it that you do. I know you and I have talked movies for as long as we've known each other, and that's always been on your.
Yes.
High on your list.
Yeah, maybe go back and read it. I mean, it didn't do well in the box office.
Yeah, I never cared about that stuff.
Yeah, critically, but again, same thing.
I remember I remember liking the visuals. I remember in particular,
right.
The snowstorm stuff was super cool, and they were all bundled up and going through the blizzard. Just also that Hateful Eight reminded me of that when they were going through the blizzard.
Yeah,
all that. But then also the dogs, the dog scene, that was always
there's a scene
striking.
I never like a movie, as you know, I never like a movie where they kill a dog. And there's a scene in there where, they bring back that's how it gets in the camp.
That's how it gets in. Yeah,
you have to watch it. But and there's that where they find the dog, but they don't do any stop motion, which thank God, and when they did the remake in 2011, they even mentioned that they weren't going to use computer effects, but they did, and it does it not the same.
It's not the same, yeah.
But there's that, and also there's a scene in there where the first person changes and goes outside, and he's laying there looking like he's hurt, and they all run around him, and they go, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he leans back, and he's changing, and his arms are, he's clearly in the middle of changing, and he screams, but he screams like this alien scream, and I remember being like, all right, that's horrifying as hell. That was
blood curdling.
Yeah, that was so horrifying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so any recommendations? Do you have a recommendation?
Well, I'm going to recommend this. This is going to sound lame because it's very much a classic. But in light of our recommendations to one another to watch, you made me watch MASH, which is it's like sucked the life out of me. I had to go back and watch a movie that I thought like, okay, give me something from that genre that I think was probably a movie that was redeeming. So I went back and watched Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid.
Good movie.
And good movie, yeah. But I always wonder why. And then it had a lot of the same potential as MASH in terms of like that 60s psychedelics leftovers, right? This was in the 70s, so it was leftover from that crazy stuff. And there was a whole scene in there where Paul Newman's riding around on his bike and, kind of stealing Robert Redford's girl or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great line. Yeah, take her. But anyway, you could do without that scene. It meant nothing. You could take that whole sequence, delete it, and the movie would be the same.
Right.
But it was still entertaining. And I felt like there was a couple of scenes like that throughout the film. And I just was comparing it. I watched it the same night that I watched MASH. And I remember comparing the two, going like, you couldn't find two more different movies that are kind of from the similar era in terms of like character development and liking the characters. These guys, they were bad guys. There's no question about it. They were bad guys, but you liked them. And in MASH, they were good guys and you hated them. And I was like, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, if you have not seen the original Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, one of the greatest endings ever. Also, by the way, I thought the ending was amazing. But yeah, just a good film.
Cool. So yeah, you made me watch Funny Games, so I decided to shave my back with a cheese grater.
Nice.
And that was much better. The whole back shaving cheese grater thing.
It's good.
So I'd recommend that. No,
cut your toenails with a flamethrower.
No. So my recommendation, I wanted to recommend something kind of Halloween-y, seasonal, and maybe a little bit scary. I actually wrote this down while I was watching it. So I would definitely recommend the first 6 episodes. I've finished watching it now, but it's a new limited series on Netflix called The Midnight Club. Straight up, it's probably something I shouldn't like, but I kind of did. Quoting Internet Movie Database, it follows a group of 8 terminally ill patients at this place called Brightcliff Hospice who begin to gather together at midnight to just kind of share scary stories, right? Okay. And what it doesn't really mention is that it takes place in the 1990s, and all the terminally ill patients are teenagers. And also this hospice is haunted. Okay, so there's lots of other stuff like haunted, like a medieval castle haunted, right? Okay. So the whole 10 episode is all stories and stories. Not really to get into it too much, but the people that made it are also the people. The guy named Mike Flanagan. He also created the Haunting of Hill House and the Haunting of Bly Manor and Midnight Mass. So again, it's why I'm kind of recommending it is it really doesn't pull any punches on the terminally ill kids. Okay. So there's no magic thinking or anything like that, and the whole fact that you're dealing with these individuals that are all going to die, and this is going to happen, really just kind of adds like this kind of dark layer to it. And so I will say there was stuff in it that really kind of touched me. Like I said, not the greatest thing I've ever watched or anything like that, but I, again, as a 50-something-year-old guy watching something that could very well have gone the way of like the CW, and also put a lot of other stuff in there that we see in today's TVs and movies, it doesn't really go there. A little bit it does. You can't help it nowadays. Yeah, nowadays. I mean? But it's worth a watch, especially if you're looking for something kind of Halloweeny. Okay. So Halloweenies is a weird word.
Halloweeny.
All right. Well,
Halloweeny.
So
don't even go there.
So, everybody that really wants to watch a good movie should watch MASH.
Yeah. If you want to dig my eyes out with a freaking salad fork.
And then we'll finish on that Halloween note, which would be weird.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all we have. I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
This is the Analog Spectrum Halloween special. We're the full-size Butterfinger in your podcast treat bag, not some shitty apple or a bunch of dumbass candy corns. Yes.
This has been an Analog Spectrum production and presentation. Doug and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us. Knowing that you gave us a listen and supported our show really means a lot to us. I posted our podcast website in the description. If you get a chance, maybe head on over there and see if you'd like to download one of our previous programs. We talk about all sorts of stuff. There might be something we posted in the past that you'll find interesting. And while you're there, please consider subscribing. That way you'll get notification of our future casts. Or if you prefer, you can search us out on just about any podcast platform there is. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and there's a few more. If you have a podcast app, we're probably on there. I almost forgot, we're on YouTube now. That link is also in the description. We haven't gotten around to producing videos yet, but all of our recordings are on there. It would be super awesome if you'd consider following us on there too. Finally, for any cast you have enjoyed, please leave us a review and a comment. 5 stars if you don't mind. Once you're done singing our praises, please share our show with your friends and family. With your help, we'll keep growing our Analog Spectrum community. That's all I have for now. Please feel free to contact us at analogspectrum@gmail.com if you have any questions or if you just want to say hello. As always, thanks for joining us on this ride, and we look forward to hanging out with you again sometime very soon.